It's not a big deal. It is tedious. It does take time. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you do that thing down below. I have the KTM Power Parts spoked wheels on my KTM 390 Adventure, and from the beginning of when I got these, I talked about how I would do a tubeless conversion on them. So that's what this video is for, is to do the conversion on this. Now, I've done this before on a BMW F800 GS, and there's some tips and things in there that I'll leave a link for in the description just for some additional reference. I won't show in great detail every single step. I'll talk about it. I'm just gonna do it. If this is something you're interested in, just know that this is very tedious. This spoke set has 32 spokes. That's a lot of nipples, spoke nipples that you have to seal and make sure that that works. So that process is gonna take some time. One thing that you're gonna need, and the way I'm gonna do it, is I'm gonna use some silicone. This is just a clear silicone, it's waterproof, and I'm gonna use that to seal up every single nipple on the spoke bed. And that's what I did before. That seemed to work, so I'm gonna do that again. Last time I used this 3M tape to cover the spoke bed after I used the silicone to seal up every nipple, I didn't really like how this went on. It was really hard to get it to cover up and seal the bed. It had a lot of bubbles in it, and I didn't want to put any punctures to get the bubbles out because the whole point is to seal it. So I'm not going to use this time. What I'm going to use is a Gorilla tape that's meant for vinyl repair. It's a heavy duty tape. So in combination of using this Gorilla tape and also the silicone, it should seal the bead. Now there's a couple of different types of kits out there already. There's the Tubeless, and I think it's called Intex or something like that. I'll put a description or put the name of it on there. The Intex system, they just use tape. They tape the spoke bed and seal it up that way. So I think with the silicone on each nipple and also putting this on, it should seal it really well. But we'll go through those steps and figure that out. The one thing you will need is a valve stem. So I picked up a tubeless valve stem from Rocky Mountain ATV and Motorcycle. I think it was $3 maybe. So I have two of these. So I will eventually do the front as well. So, and then the last thing that I do after I know that I've sealed everything up, I run ride-on in my tires so that if I get any punctures on the outside surface, the part of the surface that touches the ground, this will seal it up. Or if I find a puncture, I can pull the puncture out, and theoretically this will seal it. I haven't had any punctures using this, so maybe that's why, but that's just something I do to help keep everything sealed and running. Let's get started. First thing I've got to do is get that tire pulled off, and we'll go from there. All right, I took the rear tire tube and rim strip off. I've put it back in the frame, in the swing arm, just because it's easier to work with this because it rotates and it's just a nice easy place to work. For me, I don't have a truing stand or anything else like that, but if you had a truing stand, that would work really well for getting these done. I use a lot of soapy water to take my wheels off, so this is quite wet in here. I need to go through, I'm probably gonna take an air hose and blow out each of these nipples to get all the moisture out. And then I'm gonna probably go with like a brake cleaner and wipe this down again to try to get it as clean as possible before using the silicone. So that's where we're at right now. This next step is a step that becomes really, really tedious. So I have a little bit older tube of silicone, a smaller one, so I'm not gonna open my big one yet until I use up all of this. But what I'm gonna do is take the tip of this and I'm gonna put a bead of silicone all the way around the nipple and then fill this in as well. So I'm gonna fill in the nipple and then do a circle around that, and I'll show that real quick what that will look like. But I've got to do that on all 32 of the nipples here, and I need to make sure that everyone gets fully covered and there's no air bubbles. What I'll end up doing is after this dries, I'll have to give it 24 hours to dry, is I'll have to come back and do an inspection of this and look and make sure there's no little air bubbles, there's no little gaps. When I did this before on my F800 GS, I didn't do that, and I had one spoke on the rear wheel that had a little tiny pinhole that had I done the inspection after it had dried, I would have seen that and been able to patch it before putting it all together and having to soak it in a tub of water to figure out which spoke was leaking. So that's what I'm gonna do this time, and be very, very diligent about it. Now, I said this is very tedious. This is the beginning of the tedious part. So I know this isn't gonna be for everybody, but this is one of the ways of doing it. There are some easier kits where you just tape it. I think it's possible you could just take some good silicone tape and tape it, and that would work. But because this worked for me in the past, I'm gonna do it this way again. And by putting the silicone on each nipple, it will keep those nipples from rubbing through the silicone tape that I'm gonna put on the outside. So let's get this started. Next morning, I have got this all done. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little razor blade here, and everywhere the silicone is stuck up a little, I'm gonna trim all that off and just try to smooth it out and clean it up without disturbing the spoke nipple where it's been covered up and where it's sealed. So I'm gonna go around and do that, and then I'm also gonna do a secondary inspection of every nipple and how it's came through the wheel to make sure that it's sealed up and that I don't have to worry about anything there. And then after that, we will take some of the Gorilla tape that I have, the silicone tape, and place that over the tops of the spokes to seal those up, and also put the valve stem in. Spoke bed is sealed up. I put the rim strip on this to help protect the sealing in there. When I'm taking tires on and off, it'll be sliding and pushing on this and not on the sealing tape or on the silicone that's over each of the nipples. So I have the valve stem put in. Just a quick note, don't over tighten it because you're gonna smash that rubber up a bit much, and then over time it's gonna dry out and start leaking through there. So I'm hoping I didn't over tighten it. We will see once I get the tire put on. So I'm gonna get the tire mounted now, and then I need to try to find a bucket of water. So I have a cooler that my wheel might fit in. If that doesn't work, then I'm gonna use a bathtub. I'll just clean it afterwards. And be able to, and the reason for that is you put just enough water to cover the bottom of the spokes, and then you can spin the wheel in the water and look for bubbles. If you have bubbles, then that particular spoke is leaking air and you've got to go back through and reseal it. So we'll go through that process. Real quick note, I spent 30 to 40 minutes trying to get the Metzeler Karoo 3 rear tire to mount to this wheel, and I just could not get it. I put multiple straps around it. I tried a variety of different things. My compressor is capable of running at around 145 PSI, and it wasn't, I could not get it to seat. So what I ended up doing is switching to a different tire. I put the, what is this, a Bridgestone Battle Axe AX41 rear tire that I have. It only has about 600 or 700 miles on it, so I can run this for a while, but it's seated without any straps right away. So not a problem. If you are having trouble getting the tire that you're using to seat, maybe try a different tire. This one worked. It's a great off-road tire, so not a big deal. I just had it sitting on the side because I had been doing a lot of road riding over the summer and had taken it off not to just wear it down on the roads. Anyway, if you're having trouble, maybe try changing to a different tire to get it to seat. So the next step is to put this in a water bath just to check and see if there's any leaks in any of the spokes or from the valve stem. And if all that looks good, then we're good to go. And then I'll just let it sit in the garage for a couple of weeks and see what the air pressure does. I just did the water bath on this to check all the spokes. So the good news is none of the spokes had any air leaks. There were no bubbles coming out of any of those. However, there was a small air leak coming out of the valve stem. And I had a feeling the valve stem could be the problematic area. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pull at least one side of this tire off and slide it over to try to get to the valve stem, and then remount the tire to see if I can get the valve stem just to seat. When I took the tire off, I decided to change out the valve stem. I had a different style of valve stem that I used, and that seems to have worked. It is sealed up. You'll see a quick video of it underwater and no bubbles coming out of it. I'll still keep an eye on the air pressure, of course, over the next week or two. If you're waiting for me to go take this for a test ride and then come back and tell you what the results are, I cannot do that right now. I blew a second shock out. I am waiting for the aftermarket shock to show up, and since I already have everything taken apart right now, I don't want to put it all back together to go out for a quick spin on a shock that's gonna be bouncing all over the place. So I'm just gonna wait until the new shock comes in, and then over time I will give you feedback on how this went. I've done this before, it wasn't a big deal. As long as it holds air, it does everything you need it to. Now there's a couple of things that I know some of you are gonna ask is what happens if you need to tighten up a spoke? You may potentially disrupt or disturb where the silicone seal is around the nipple, and it may not seal. If that's the case, all you have to do is just cut around the nipple, the tape off of that part of it, pull the silicone out, re-silicone it, and then put a new strip of tape over the top, and that'll seal it up. I had to do that on the previous installation that I did because one of the nipples was leaking. I didn't get it sealed well, so I did that. It's not a big deal, and that way it gives you the ability to continue to repair and keep this tubeless because of the benefits of doing a plug repair over having to pull out a tube. So in my opinion, this is worth it. Now, one of the things I will not do, I know some of you lower your tire pressures when you're off-road. I don't do that anyway, and I don't want to risk the bead coming unset by running really, really low air pressures. I know typically when you run tubeless, you can get away with a little bit lower air pressure. I don't do that. I'm fully loaded. I want to try to preserve my wheels and not smash them into things. I'll give up a little bit of traction to not damage the wheels. If I'm in a really, really bad situation, super muddy, super sandy, I might lower it just to get through that, but I'm gonna air it back up to road pressure. That's how I ride. I know that's not for everybody, but I'm more concerned about saving the wheels and not tearing tires off and having a worse situation afterwards. If you have any questions about doing this, leave those in the comments below. I will put a description and part number of the valve stem that I recommend using. It's the one I did before. I should have gotten those before doing this. I thought these new valve stems I had were gonna work. They didn't. I'll put that in the description. It's not a big deal. It is tedious. It does take time. But overall, long term, this would be a much better setup. I don't have to worry about tubes, and I will run the ride-on in there. So if I do get a puncture, it should seal from the ride-on, and then I can always plug it. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this useful, especially if you want to know whether or not you can go tubeless on the KTM Power Parts spoked wheels for the KTM 390 Adventure. I think this would also work on the Rottweiler spoked rim aftermarket conversion they have as well, or their aftermarket part. You could do this on those as well and have a tubeless setup. If you've done this yourself and you have any experience with it, leave those in the comments below as well. And get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there.